Would you like your law firm to run and to perform like the Duracell bunny? If you do, you need to put in the right batteries. Imagine that your law firm outruns and outperforms all the other ones, that it's at the front of the queue, and it lasts longer. It has durability, it has sustainability. My name is Peter Abrahamson. I am the emotional weightlifter to the legal profession. I work with individual lawyers and I also work with law firm partners and law firm owners when they want to create a culture that is supportive and sustainable, productive and profitable. Of course, has to be profitable. So I have developed a framework called Healthy Minds for Business. Now, Healthy Minds for Business is not another one of those let's sit down and hold hands, or let's do some yoga and let's have some fun benefits. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the nuts and bolts of relationships within the business, how we treat each other, how we behave, how we can do the simple things that have a huge impact. So I talked about the 6 batteries. We have the AAA batteries, we have AA batteries. I've got the 6A batteries for you. 6 of them you need to insert, keep them charged, keep doing them, and you will be on your way to having a sustainable business. So the first battery that you insert is the one I call awareness. That's the first A battery, awareness. About what? Awareness about what does human well-being actually mean. There are loads of misconceptions and stigma and all sorts of things out there. We need to clear that away. Need to understand what your understanding is of human well-being. I try to avoid talking about emotional or mental well-being because we are human beings. We are one whole person, so we need to talk about our well-being. Having done that, we go to the second battery, which is called attitude. What is your attitude to human well-being in your law firm, in your organization? We've cleared away all the misconceptions, if any. But now we need to understand what you think it means for you. How important is it? Is it something you really want? I assume it is when you want to work with me on these things. But how important is it? Okay, we figure that out. And the next thing, after we know what is and what isn't a part of all of this and how important it is to you, now we need to know, how ambitious are you? How ambitious are you about introducing human well-being culture in your law firm? What does good look like? What is it that you want to see at the end of this process? If you don't know that, we have nothing to aim for, so we need something to aim for, some goals to achieve. So we know our attitude, we are aware, we know how ambitious you are. But it's all well and good being ambitious. But there's one thing that can kill ambition, and that is the next battery. It's called affordability. Do your ambitions match your budget, basically? How much money are you prepared to spend? How many hours are you prepared to spend implementing and maintaining well-being in your organization? I have seen examples of people going all in, very ambitious, and then a year or half a year later, cutting back because the results weren't forthcoming. It seemed to be too expensive. People didn't use the benefits, or they didn't take up the offer, if you like. So it's important that you match your budget with your ambition. You can always start small. Start small is better than not starting at all. The worst thing you can do is having to cut back, because then you have lost all credibility. Absolutely. You will have lost it completely at that point. You can always add more later. Now, that's a talking thing done. That's a thinking. We need some action, and action is the fifth battery that goes into your Duracell bunny here. I work with you as a leader, as a partner, and there comes a time where, of course, you need to set out what you want to achieve, but you need people to achieve that with you. There is absolutely no point in starting this process if you do it to people. People don't mind change. They just hate being changed. So when you know where you want to go, because at the end of the day, that's your job as a leader to set out the direction, then we start involving the right people to be involved in the process of implementing the changes that need to be implemented in order to get the results that you want. What those people are, who they are, all entirely depends on the size and shape of your law firm, of your organization. I always recommend that we do a broad cross-section of everybody. So it isn't just the lawyers, it isn't just the managers, but everybody is part of the whole organization. Everybody has a role to play. So the more people are involved in creating the changes, the more they live them, the more they stay with them. The less resistance, basically, is what I'm saying. That was the first 5 batteries. Let's go to the 6th battery. And that is what I call advantages. There has to be advantages of doing all of this, otherwise it's pointless. But how do you know? So we do the metrics. We take a starting point, which is part of the whole Healthy Minds for Business program. It is to figure out what is the current state right now. We decide what we want to measure. It could be absenteeism. It could be client loyalty. It could be all manner of things that we decide are important. And then we create the metrics and we decide at what point are we going to measure again. Because if we don't measure, we won't know whether it works or not. If it does work, we do more of it. Something doesn't work, we make changes. And that is essentially the 6 A batteries that you need to put into your organization, into your law firm, if you want a good, thriving, productive, sustainable, and profitably sustainable culture and operation. See, I mentioned the word operation here because I get into trouble sometimes by likening a law firm to a factory. Not popular, but hear me out. A factory turns raw materials into finished goods. That's all they do. Something comes in, they do something to it, and something goes out the other end. That's the same in a law firm. Your raw materials are the instructions, new instructions from your clients. Then you do a bit of thinking, talking, writing, researching, back and forth. And then in the end, you have your finished goods, which is a document, a contract, a solution, something that the client asked you to produce. You solved a problem. That is your finished goods. And in this production process are a lot of wheels that are turning. You're moving this and that, and people are doing all manner of things. And I'm being vague here because it's all down to each individual law firm, how you do things at the moment. But is it working? Are you experiencing bottlenecks? Like someone is very busy and somebody else isn't? Somebody's always hanging on to everything. You're always waiting for that somebody. Do things break down? Systems, people? What about rework? There's nothing more irritating, I find, when you have to do the same thing twice. And if you keep bouncing things because the quality isn't good enough, well, maybe you haven't agreed yet. What does good look like? What is the right quality? So you have a supply chain internally as well, which is where everything that you hand over to a colleague, up or down, sideways, you have a client-supplier relationship. And we'll talk a lot more about that and make sure it happens. So Healthy Minds for Business is very much about identifying the irritants, the things that don't work in your business, in your law firm. But it is also as much about identifying what actually does work. I'm not ever going to suggest that nothing works. There's always something that you do well and that we need to build on and do more of. So this is what Healthy Minds is about. It is not about adding something on top of your business that you now have to somehow do mental health. No, it is about your way of life, how you decide to treat each other, how you decide that this is what well-being and this is what good looks like in our company. Because if you look after the people who produce the bottom line, you will get a good bottom line. If you wear them down, if you ignore them, they will leave, you will have huge recruitment costs, and so on and so forth. You won't have the consistency. You will lose credibility. Every time you do not function internally, every time you do not have healthy minds in your business suffers. And that is a huge business risk. So think about kindness. Think about we're just a group of human beings here, and we should all be able to function. I hope this gives you an idea of what my framework, Healthy Minds for Business, is about. If you want to know more about this, give me a shout. Send me an email, give me a ring, whatever you choose. I'm here to listen to what you want and here to find out how we can put something together that makes sense to you. Thank you very much for watching. I am Peter Abrahamson, the emotional weightlifter to the legal profession.